Cornel West was at the Democratic National Committee meeting, took place over this past weekend. The platform is getting finalized. And look, it's not, there's some steps forward in this platform. There's some steps backwards. Ultimately, this is not going to be a very, very progressive platform. That's reality. There's some, I think we saw with some aspects of Secretary Clinton's college proposals that came out, there's some real steps forward there. That's thanks to Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders, I believe, will be endorsing her tomorrow. So that's the reality. But of course, this internal fight is profoundly important for the future of the Democratic Party, for progressive politics. And there's many issues. Of course, living wage, TPP. But the Middle East and Palestinian human rights proves to be a very important area for kind of measuring genuine commitment to sort of progressive internationalism. It's a sort of similar thing where the usual caveats almost should go without saying. Do people who support Palestinian rights and self-determination condemn terrorism, condemn suicide bombing, condemn the human rights violations by Hamas and other groups? Of course. Is targeting civilians ever justified? Of course not. And I believe, fundamentally, if you support human rights and international law, you support human rights and international law, period. Now, there's a vast asymmetry of power here, a vast one. And if you think that the siege on Gaza, the occupation of the West Bank, is purely a byproduct of perceived Israeli security concerns, you're delusional. And you do not have a serious policy understanding of what's happening there, whether from a progressive, idealistic, internationalist perspective, where you should be worried about supporting the genuine Israeli left, or from a realist perspective, where you realize that the long-term support of these policies is detrimental to both the United States and Israel, and of course, Palestinian civilians. So Cornel West has been fighting for the Democratic platform to recognize the human rights abuses of Palestinians. And he wants to talk specifically here about the rebuilding of Gaza, which some reports suggest could be literally uninhabitable by the year 2020 if current trends continue. It already is rather uninhabitable. Cornel West, this did not make it into the platform, and this is Cornel West speaking now on behalf of having it in the plank, and he draws a very disturbing historical parallel with another great failure of the Democratic Party. Let's listen.
All we're trying to say is Democratic Party must tell the truth. We can never fully respect the Palestinians unless we can name what they're up against, the boot on their necks. I come from a people who've been hated. And they said slavery. No, you got a race problem. It's not a race problem, it's slavery. No, not a race problem, it's Jim Crow. No, it's discrimination. It's not discrimination. It's terrorizing black people. When would America tell the truth about the boot on our necks? That's all we're saying.
Yeah. And look, the Middle East requires serious truth-telling. And it requires truth-telling here that there is more of in Israel, frankly. Ehud Olmert, former Israeli prime minister, very controversial figure, did many things that I strongly disagree with, including in Lebanon and Gaza. He's currently in prison on a corruption charge. But I will say this. He was a very intelligent, very historically aware leader. He said in 2003, as far back as 2003, and by the way, it was not of the Israeli left, was in Likud, then left to do Kadima with Sharon. So always in the right or the center right, his whole political career. He said, Israel will become an apartheid state. Now, Ehud Barak has said the same thing. It's another senior former prime minister, former defense minister. These are hawkish, strong nationalists. And the only distinction in what they're saying and what human rights activists is saying is attaching a time frame to it. We got to get real about this. It's a security concern and it's a humanitarian concern. And you cannot have any legitimacy as a spokesperson for human rights and international law if you do not take the Palestinians as seriously as any other group, including Israelis, including Sri Lankans, Zambians, Americans, whatever. There's no special exemption for Palestinians that put them outside of the boundaries of human concern or international law.
Hello, you. I'm Sam Seder. Looking for smart progressive talk that is occasionally amusing? Well, subscribe to our YouTube feed. Subscribe to our podcast. Like us on Facebook. And just generally enjoy us.